Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Rachel Bussman, and I'm a clinical psychologist and the Senior Director of the Anxiety Disorder Center at the Child Mind Institute. To meet the unprecedented mental health and parenting needs of this coronavirus crisis, the Child Mind Institute has gone borderless. We are here with gold standard clinical care, advice and resources for children and families wherever you are, all online and accessible to everyone. Here's what we can do. Here's what we're doing to support you through this crisis. We're providing gold standard mental health care remotely for new and existing patients with telehealth while maintaining the same high quality of care. We have free, comprehensive resources for families at childmind.org/coronavirus. You can sign up daily to get parenting tips at childmind.org. And on Facebook, my colleagues and I are answering your questions just like this at 10 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And our Facebook group for parenting during the time of coronavirus is already up and running. We're here for you wherever you are, so please contact us with further questions about how we can help. And I hope you will take advantage of our resources and share them with your networks. And as a reminder, we write down all the questions that you have. So if we don't get to those questions during one of our Facebook Lives, we will be sure to get to those questions just as soon as we can. Today, we're going to be discussing anxiety during the coronavirus, what parents can do for anxious kids. And we absolutely welcome any questions that you have. You can just type them in and we will field them. And so I do have a couple of really fabulous questions already that have been sent. And so I'm going to go ahead and answer those now, and we'll take those questions as they come. So one of the questions that came up has been around sleep. So there have been a few questions this past week about sleep and children, and actually about teenagers. So I actually have two questions, and I'll answer them now. So one of them is, my child wants to sleep with us, so with it back in parents' bed, and hasn't been doing this for a while. Is that okay to just kind of let that happen? And so I actually think that's a great question, because a lot of the comments that we've had at Child Mind have been around sleep and some difficulties falling asleep or staying asleep, or even just a little bit of anxiety around bedtime. And so it's not uncommon for children, when they're sort of experiencing some change or a shift in their routine, to demonstrate some difficulty falling asleep or some shifts in their behavior. So there really isn't a straight answer for how you should manage sleep in your individual family. But if you notice that your child is wanting to sleep with you, and that's something that they don't normally do, and that's something that you see as a shift, my suggestion, my advice would be to assume that what you do tonight is going to continue. So meaning it's one thing to decide on a weekend, we're all going to just kind of pile in the bed and maybe watch a movie and have some cuddle time together. That's great and very much encouraged. But we've also talked a lot in the past couple weeks about keeping routines and keeping familiar routines and familiar structure. So if your child is showing anxiety around bedtime, and the remedy in the short term is to just allow the child to sleep in the bed, that's probably not a great long-term solution. There are lots of things that can be done as sort of intermediate steps to manage anxiety at bedtime. This actually happened in my house the other night, so I'm happy to share it, that my son was having a little bit of distress at bedtime, kind of not related to anything really serious or anything related to the coronavirus directly, but he just kind of was playing Legos and got upset about something and bumped his finger, and this led to a lot of upset. And he really wanted to sleep in our bed. And so we did I did a lot of reassurance giving around just making him feel better because he got hurt. And then we definitely provided a lot of TLC, but still got him back in his bed. We let him lay with us for a little bit, and we provided some comfort, but then we said, you know what, you're feeling better, your finger doesn't hurt anymore, so now it's really time to go back in your bed. Because that's what you do. That's where you sleep. So I think providing some comfort and reassurance, but keeping those routines around sleep especially, can be really important. Similarly, I've heard a couple questions around teens and difficulty falling asleep. And so my guess is that a lot of teenagers aren't asking to sleep in mom or dad's bed, although certainly that can absolutely happen, and it's not uncommon for it to happen. So I wouldn't be too shocked or surprised if that happens. On the other hand, it's really important. Oh, sorry. Had a little tech glitch for a second. Similarly, teenagers can absolutely experience anxiety can manifest in a variety of ways. The good thing about teenagers is they often are able to say what's on their mind if you kind of open yourself up to hearing what they have to say. So if you notice your teenager is up late or kind of wandering around, coming into your room, you could say first, yeah, like I notice it's midnight or it's 11 o'clock, what's going on? Hopefully that might lead to a conversation around what is going on. Some of the things that could be helpful short-term solutions for teenagers who are having difficulty falling asleep would be to encourage some kind of powering down of devices about an hour before bed. I know that's easier said than done because a lot of our teenagers, and I admit myself, I've been saying I want to get off my device sooner, and I really need to do that. Teenagers also need to do that. So sort of powering down from some of those highly stimulating activities can be helpful. However, potentially using a mindfulness app like Headspace or Stop, Breathe, Think can be really great for just a guided meditation around sleep, or putting on a sound machine or having some music can be great. Just having a little bit of an opportunity for some distraction that's not super intense. So again, like engaging in vigorous activity right before bed might not be the best remedy, but maybe just some quiet time with a parent or some quiet time alone. Sometimes teenagers actually want to spend time with a parent when they're settling down. So I think just encouraging your teenager to let you know if they're having difficulty falling asleep, just being attuned to that and offering some tips like powering down an hour before bed, using some mindfulness strategies, or even some relaxing distraction. Another question that has come up, and I'm going to just pull up some other questions while we're speaking, is my child doesn't really want to go out of the house. So this question came from someone whose child already experiences some anxiety around trying new things and taking risks. And so some children might actually be sort of picking up on the messages that are coming around that, like don't go to playgrounds or don't go to places where other people are. And we absolutely want to follow safe social distancing practices, and obviously some playgrounds and parks have been closed. On the other hand, we really do want to encourage engaging in activities that are pleasant, and some of them include going outside and getting fresh air, and really encouraging your children to do those things when you've determined that it's safe. So I know this question maybe came up on another Facebook Live, but it came up again just around the idea of if your child is really avoiding, let's say, leaving the house or going into the driveway, really noticing that and catching it soon into the pattern. So being able to say, you know what, I know it's sometimes hard to go outside, or if the child is actually saying, I'm scared, saying, one, validating that emotion by saying, I know that this feels really scary. I understand that. And at the same time, you know what, it's really important that we get some fresh air. Let's sit out on the front step. If you have a backyard, let's sit, 5 feet away in the yard, or I'm going to go down the end of the driveway and get the mail, but I really need your help. Please hold the door open. I also think I've seen a lot of things on social media around pets and the power of animals. So certainly if you have a dog that needs to be walked, that is great. And often a very nice intermediate step is to sort of help your child focus on taking care of something else. Like, oh, well, I know you don't really want to go out inside and play, but Sparky needs to be walked and I could really use your help. So another question that came up recently was, my child is asking, when are we going to go back to school? And so I think this question can actually come from either end of either my child really wants to go back to school and is asking a lot, when can I go back, in a way of missing school and feeling like they're missing out on something, versus kind of the other side, which would be, I hear we're going to go back to school and I really don't want to go back to school, or I'm nervous. Is it going to be safe? And so I actually think that because we've talked about knowing the information that you have in front of you is really what you can share with your child. So if your child's saying like, when are we going to go back to school? I miss my friends, and you really don't know when school is going to reconvene, because at this point we really don't. The best you can kind of say is, well, let me know what is most on your mind. And so let's say your child says, I really just miss my friends. I don't even remember what they look like. Or I really miss going out in the recess because our backyard is fun, but it's not as fun as the one at school. Validating your child's emotion is really important, even if it's not totally understandable to you in the moment how important it is. So saying something like, yeah, the playground at school is much more exciting, or I know you really want to see your friends and Zoom just isn't the same. So those are important things to first validate, and then answer what you can. And so we really want to avoid making promises that we just cannot keep. So you really can't say, well, we're going back in 2 weeks unless you really know that that's going to happen. And the current state we're in, we really don't actually have a firm answer of when certain restrictions or new policies are going to change. So saying things like, I don't really know. I promise I'm going to let you know when I have more information. And do you have any more questions? Is there anything else you're worried about? Similarly, it's really helpful to tell your child what actions you're taking and what they should be doing. So I know you're really worried about going back to school. You miss your friends. We don't yet know when that's going to be. But then saying, here's what we're doing. We're washing our hands. We're practicing that thing called social distancing. You're learning on the computer right now. And when things change, I'm definitely going to let you know. And similarly, for the kids who might be worried, is it going to be safe to go back to school? Am I going to get sick? I think we actually use those same strategies. We want to figure out what the child's thinking about. We want to give them information and correct any misinformation. And then again, let them know what steps we're taking and let them know what we expect of them. And so what do we expect of kids? We expect them to be following the routine that we're setting for them, do their work, whatever that means in terms of work, and that they're going to let us know how they feel, and we're going to answer their questions when they have them. Okay. I am encouraging folks to send in your questions. I have one more question that I think has come up for sure for people, which is, I don't necessarily, I'm noticing that my child's having some tantrums, or we're having an increase in sort of battles on the home front. Do you have any suggestions? Yes. And I think this is coming up for sure. I don't know about anyone else, but I feel days particularly might feel a little bit on edge. My son told me earlier I seemed a little irritated, and he's spoken like a psychologist's son. I happen to feel a little irritated in that particular moment. So yes, our kids are maybe going to be more prone to some outbursts or tantrums or feeling frustrated. And definitely the thing you want to do and think about is to pick your battles. And because our energy, our resources and our energy is not an unlimited bucket of energy, which means that if you're noticing that there's a power struggle, or you notice there's some pushback, you want to actually make a quick decision about, is this really important right now? If you've decided that this actually is really important and you really want to follow through with that limit, that is absolutely okay and great. And you want to follow through with that limit. And if your child starts to melt down or really become disruptive to other people in the home, that's a great opportunity to remove yourself, to safely remove your child into another room, especially if they're younger, and just limit the amount of back and forth conversation that happens until they're calm. On the other hand, if really, sometimes I do this, I set a limit and I'm thinking in my mind, I don't even know why I said that. This isn't even that important right now. And so that is an opportunity when you might say, you know what, I got a lot of battles to pick. We got a lot of battles every day, every week. This isn't one of those times. And so maybe I'm going to be a little bit more flexible about the particular limit that I'm setting. And it doesn't mean that you're totally giving in. It actually means that you're making an active choice in the moment to just not make a battle out of that particular situation. And so that actually can be kind of empowering, because many households and many homes right now don't just have one person in them. And so you might have multiple children, you might have one child that's very young or a teenager, and it's really important to do the best you can to kind of keep the thermostat at a constant temperature. And so knowing the battles that you want to pick and that you don't are really helpful and important. So I'm just going to check in and see if we have any other questions, and then I'm just kind of close us up for the afternoon. Okay. I really appreciate all the ongoing questions, all the fabulous feedback that we've gotten. And so I really just want to thank you again for joining me this afternoon. I really hope that it was helpful. And remember that we'll be back here 10 a.m. on Monday morning to answer more questions. The Childmind Institute is here to help with the mental health and parenting needs of this current coronavirus crisis, no matter where you are. We have the resources to help, from daily tips to consultations to gold standard mental health treatment. Please visit us at childmind.org/coronavirus. And if you have further questions, please feel free to type them in, and we'll do our best to answer them next week. Have a very pleasant afternoon and evening.